Witam Państwa bardzo serdecznie na moim kanale. Dziś znów prosto z Parlamentu Europejskiego w Strasburgu, gdzie właśnie odbywa się sesja plenarna Parlamentu Europejskiego. Dziś moim i Państwa gościem jest pan Fabrice Leggeri, były dyrektor wykonawczy Frontexu w latach 2015-2022, teraz członek Parlamentu Europejskiego z francuskiego Zjednoczenia Narodowego, będący w grupie Patrioci dla Europy. Today, my guest is Fabrice Leggeri, who served as the executive director of Frontex from 2015 to 2022. Now he is a member of European Parliament from France National Rally Party. Fabrice, I really appreciate that you accepted my invitation. It's a great honor to speak with you today. Thank you for accepting invitation to this interview. Fabrice, the purpose of our meeting is to explain the issue of migration to people in Poland or perhaps beyond. You managed Frontex as its executive director for over 7 years. You have vast experience in migration matters. To begin with, please tell us, what is Frontex actually responsible for?
Dzień dobry. Thank you for the invitation. Well, Frontex is the European agency in charge of border control and border guard and coast guard. That means that the role of Frontex is to support member states. So, for example, to support Polish border guard in protecting the borders against illegal migration, but also against different forms of criminality, like drugs trafficking, weapons trafficking, stolen cars, etc., etc. This is normally the role of Frontex as described by the European legislation. But my experience has shown that sometimes everything is not played according to the rules.
And we will talk about that, especially about that support for borders that you've mentioned. In 2015, when you began your work as the head of Frontex, the European Union was opening its borders to mass migration. A record number of visas were being issued at the time. What was the policy of Frontex policy towards migrants at this critical moment, and what kind of instruction did you get from European Commission?
Well, in 2015, there were many Syrian refugees, Syrian people coming at the Greek islands, so many coming from Turkey. In total, in 2015, there were 1.2 million people who arrived illegally. So that means that they crossed illegally the borders. There were, so to say, no instructions from Brussels. At that time, there was Greek leftist government, and there were many NGOs in the field. So I had a request from Greece to help with Frontex deployment, but Frontex at that time was a very small agency. We had less than 300 people, and all this staff was in fact already deployed either in Greece or in Italy or in Spain. So step by step, in the course of, let's say, 2015, and as we were all witnessing the disaster, that there were every day thousands of people arriving in Greece, the European Commission decided to beef up Frontex and to give us more budget, to allow us to recruit more staff and to extend a little bit the competence. What I understood at that time was that the mission that was given to me by the commissioner, who was a Greek commissioner, Avramopoulos, from the EPP. So let's say that it was a sort of center-right approach. They were saying, oh my gosh, now we forgot to close the borders, we forgot to protect the borders. We need to hurry, we need to help Greece, because other member states were complaining, Germany, but also, well, Poland and many other countries. So they beefed up the resources, but in parallel, there was always a growing influence of NGOs. So the Commission wanted to balance. On the one hand, they wanted to beef up a sort of police to help member states, but on the other hand, there were NGOs complaining that we should welcome migrants.
About NGOs, we will talk a little bit later, because I think it's a big problem right now when we need to support our borders, in Poland especially, but not only in Poland, in the whole European Union. But what about Fundamental Rights Office in Frontex? I think that this is an organization inside Frontex who had incredible impact on you, on what you were doing, on your policy towards migrations, migrants, and how did you cooperate with Fundamental Rights Office?
Well, I was not convinced by the necessity of having Fundamental Rights Office. Just to explain, so that the people watching our interview can understand. This Fundamental Rights Office is a part of Frontex, and it's paid by the EU budget, so it's paid by EU taxpayers, but they are totally independent. So that means that the director of Frontex, the management of Frontex, cannot instruct them what they have to do. They want to be
But they
independent.
can control you, as
Yes.
the chief leader of Frontex, what you are doing with migrants, for example.
They were, in fact, sharing recommendations. But you know, this is a political way to put pressure.
Yes.
And this pressure was orchestrated with NGOs and the so-called consultative forum. So these are people who came to me as executive director, and were saying, we want to recommend, we want to advise you, but I didn't need their advice. But they had the right to come and to advise. I was not really listening to them because it was totally chaotic what they were saying. Just to give you an example, in 2021, as Belarus used a hybrid threat, using migrants to disturb Poland and to disturb Lithuania. The so-called fundamental rights monitors, which were at the border, in the field, they were telling European border guards deployed by Frontex, but also they were telling the Lithuanian police officer that the instruction was illegal when the bosses were saying that the role of the border guard is to stop migrants. And then they put in writing a recommendation sent to me, and the recommendation was that I should pay buses with Frontex budget to transport all migrants, I'm quoting, waiting in Belarus, and to transport them to Lithuania. But they also said, if there is not space enough in Lithuania, you can, of course, that's what the fundamental rights monitors were saying, you can, of course, transport them to Poland. My reaction was, no, as executive director of Frontex, I see my role as a support to Lithuanian government that wanted to have the support of the border guard to protect the border. And I said, I'm not sure that Polish government would be convinced to invite all migrants, because Poland at that time, it was a law and justice government, they were building a fence.
After the situation in Lithuania, Poland didn't ask for Frontex help in protecting our eastern borders. So many of people can say that basically Frontex stopped stopped doing their job at that time in protecting eastern borders of European Union. Were your hands tied, or what was the reason of that? Was the impact of Frontex Fundamental Rights Office so big on you, on Frontex, that you couldn't do anything with those migrants who were sent from Belarus to Poland or to Lithuania?
Well, in fact, I advised the Polish government not to request Frontex support, and they explained that with this Fundamental Rights Office that has become even bigger, 60 people working in this office in charge of fundamental rights, and they said. It was a moment after 2020, 2021, it was a moment when I was attacked politically by the European Commission, and in particular by Commissioner Johansson, a leftist Swedish commissioner, former communist, so she started as member of the Communist Party of Swedish Workers. So this can set the scene. When I checked her CV, before our first appointment, I was thinking, okay, now I will probably not be able to work with that one, but she was the commissioner. And that was the moment after 2020 when, Turkish
What
Coast
did she
Guard...
expect from you? What kind of job you need to do in her expectations that will be good for Frontex, for supporting borders, etc.? Well,
I can give you, for example, what she said. The first time I met this commissioner, Ylva Johansson, I explained what we were doing. And we were developing the European Border and Coast Guard with European uniform, with weapons. This was first time in history, and it's not easy to equip EU staff with weapons. And I was explaining why we had some delays, because there were legal, operational complications. So I wanted to explain why we are a little bit late. And she interrupted me and said, but anyway, you don't need weapons, you don't need uniforms. Because, and she said, the role of border guards, according to Johansson, is to welcome migrants. And she said, they come for love. I don't understand this concept. She said, they come for love. And she added, Europe is an aging continent. And then she threatened me and said, whether you like it or not, your job is to welcome migrants. And she repeated twice, whether you like it or not, your job is to welcome migrants. So at that time, I felt, and this was in October 2019, I could feel the political pressure, the political hostility against the concept of border management, border control, and protecting the borders against migrants. Previously, the instruction was to create a sort of border police that would help national border police.
Yes.
But from that moment, when we had Johansson, they orchestrated different plots against me and against the agency. So in October 2020, so-called investigative journalists funded by Soros and Open Society, they disseminated obviously fake videos with, well, provided by the Turkish Coast Guard, showing Hellenic Coast Guard violently pushing back migrants with Frontex vessels, and Frontex witnessing this and even somehow helping the Hellenic Coast Guard. And this, of course, became viral because it was orchestrated by NGOs, by Commissioner Johansson, by
some
media, leftist media, and members of the European Parliament sitting on the left part of the hemicycle. And from that moment on, they wanted me to resign, but they expected me to resign immediately. But I didn't. I resisted. I have been resisting for 1.5 years until April 22. And they then opened an investigation they used an investigation service of the European Commission, and they came to my office and said, and they have a sort of written mandate saying that I am and my subordinators are suspected of organizing and or / covering illegal violation of migrants' fundamental rights and all this narrative. This doesn't exist in the mandate of these investigators. And then they added a sentence like, and any other misbehavior and or mismanagement and or wrongdoings, blah, blah, blah. So this was just to come to my office, to search my computer, to search my head of cabinet computers, and to search the computer and telecommunication means of several employees. And they wanted to show evidences that we were covering alleged Greek pushbacks, and that
maybe at that time maybe they need to search for evidence about, I don't know, cooperation between NGOs.
Yes.
And many organizations who were trafficking, specialized in human trafficking.
Yes, and that's correct, that they wanted to screen everything, all my actions from the very beginning until the day when they arrived to my office in Warsaw. And in fact, they asked me later on during the investigation, yeah, but why have you not worked more closely with the Fundamental Rights Office? You should have. And they even said that I was too much focused on border security, on the national security of member states, instead of, and they were saying, instead of the rights of the fundamental rights of migrants.
So they didn't need you or want you to support borders, to protect borders, but they need you or want you to protect NGOs specialized in human trafficking, for example.
Yes, yes, and even
That's horrible.
In 2017.
So what they need Frontex for?
Well, in fact, they want to use all these NGOs and let's say the Soros constellation with all these NGOs and Johansson at that time, they wanted to use Frontex as a Trojan horse. You know the Trojan horse, where you have NGOs embedded in the agency, and then the NGOs embedded in the agency are members of a so-called consultative forum on fundamental rights, but then they went one step further, and these are the fundamental rights monitors. Now they have more than 50 fundamental rights monitors deployed to the field. So that means that in fact the Commission wanted to organize a parallel chain of command, because normally the chain of command, you know, it's an operational action, and the national authorities, for example, in Lithuania, because I was explaining this operation, in Lithuania or in Greece, the command, the tactical command, is in the hands of national authorities. And then they give instructions to Frontex battalion, if you were in Frontex staff, and we agreed on an operational plan. So the Minister of Lithuania, Minister of Interior, and myself, in my capacity of Director of Frontex, we signed an operational plan, which is a sort of contract where we say, these are the objectives of our cooperation, these are the tasks, these are the means, so how many staff members, how many vehicles, etc. I will deploy. And that's the core of the cooperation between Frontex and national authorities. And the chain of command is very clear. It's normally we had team leaders, we had also, we were recruiting Frontex officers to be, well, let's say the leaders of small platoons, but then the leaders, Frontex leaders, had to report to national authorities who are really the commanders. And the Commission and the NGOs, they wanted to have a parallel chain of command with the fundamental rights monitors and officers, independent officers, being there in the field and, in fact, giving de facto instructions or trying to deter border guards from doing their job. So what they were telling, you know, basic border guards, Lithuanian police officers or Frontex basic officers, they were telling them, you know what, your bosses give you illegal instruction. Your bosses will have legal problems, but if you follow these instructions, if you implement what they say, you will also have problems. So you should listen to the fundamental rights monitors, because what they tell you to do is against the EU values. What are the EU values? We don't know. What I know is that normally,
we know right now,
in the Schengen Border Code, it is clearly written, and this is EU legislation, that member states shall prevent illegal crossings of the external border. So what the Polish government was doing in building a fence was absolutely okay.
I would like to ask you about Polish situation. Let's go back to 2021, when we have this hybrid attack on the Polish border from Belarus, including migrants. Did Poland act appropriately back then? Should we, I don't know, follow Germans' example from 2015 and open our borders to those migrants, or did we act appropriately?
I think what the Polish government did in 2021 was absolutely correct. I even praised publicly what the Polish government did. And that's why I got into troubles with the European Commission, because at that time there was also this issue of so-called rule of law, infringement, and there was a case open against Poland at that time. And the Commission didn't like what I said, because I was invited by Polish authorities to visit the border area between Poland and Belarus. We went to this special zone where NGOs had no right to enter, no journalists, no NGOs. And I could witness how, while Polish authorities were building the fence, I was there and could see Polish soldiers, Polish civilian border guards protecting together the borders. And my conclusion, when I spoke to media, I said that what the Polish government was doing was perfect, and that Frontex could not do better, and that the only way to protect even the Schengen area was to block the migrants at the border.
So let's look about Polish government right now. I don't know if you know what's happening on our western borders at this time. Germany was sending us migrants. They didn't want, claiming that they were in Poland at the first time, even though they have no evidence for that theory. Donald Tusk set up a special zone that made it impossible for ordinary citizens to see what is happening on our western borders. And what do you think? What kind of operation is this?
Well, I know that currently German authorities, German police is sending migrants to Poland.
Yes.
They say that they are sending them back to Poland, but I'm not sure that all these migrants arrived from Poland. I can give you an example. I'm French, and we know, and the German border is not that far from Strasbourg, where we are right now, that the German police every day sends migrants to France. And they say, well, they are sending them back to France.
So you have the same situation as we do in Poland?
Same situation as at the Polish border. But we know that many of those migrants have never been in France. So there is, of course, a situation where there are many illegally staying migrants in Germany. There are also many NGOs, German NGOs, very active in, let's say, inviting migrants to Europe.
Exactly.
I even remember when I visited in 21 the border area near, well, in the eastern part of Poland, and near Kuźnica, border crossing point, and there, in this region, we noticed that there were many vans with German license plate. And, you know, it was really surprising that in these small villages, 500, 600 kilometers from Germany, that there were so many German license plates there. They were not all tourists, and let's say that all these vans looked like vans to transport migrants to Germany, or I don't know where. But complicity, of course, they are NGOs, and I could also witness the same in the central Mediterranean after summer 2017. We could witness cooperation at sea between NGOs and smugglers.
Where horrible. Where did those NGOs came from? Are all they financed by Open Society Foundation or what? And what is their task to do in Europe? They are just to disturb our situation on our borders or inside our countries?
Well, unfortunately, there are many NGOs. Some of them are funded by Soros and this Open Society, let's say, constellation. But there are many other NGOs funded by governments and by the European Commission.
What for?
And this is the stupidity.
What is the reason?
And for example, in France, there is SOS Méditerranée, which is obviously an organization helping migrants to come illegally. They get funds from the central government, they get funds from some regional governments, and they even get funds from some municipalities. For example, the city of Paris gives them money. The ideology behind, I would say some of these NGOs are useful idiots. So they say, and perhaps in good
Maybe
faith.
not NGOs as well, but the activists.
The activists.
Yes.
So they are sort of useful idiots. They say, yeah, we are here to help. We are humanitarian people.
Yeah.
We want to help because people are suffering.
But the NGOs as itself is very well organized organization who have a lot of money to do what it does.
And they know. So I can give two explanations. What is their motivation? I would say first, there is a cynical motivation, which is to bring cheap labor force to Europe and to Germany. Because we should not forget that in 2015, in fact, it was German industry pressing Angela Merkel to accept Syrian refugees because Germany was missing labor force, in particular cheap labor force, and they wanted to have this free, cheap labor force. So this is one aspect. So I think that everywhere, not only in Germany, but usually in Europe, and probably it's the same in Poland, because now labor force is not that cheap in Poland compared to other countries. So there are, some actors who want to have a cheap labor force coming to the country.
We have this problem since Law and Justice government, and now also when Donald Tusk is in government.
But there is another motivation, which is more, let's say, an ideology, which is perhaps even worse. It's not to make money, it's to destroy our civilization. It's to destroy our nations, to destroy our culture. So they bring people coming with a completely different background, cultural background. And these people are, in fact, changing our daily reality. Maybe in Poland, the damage is not that far
Not yet.
advanced, not yet. But my advice to Poland is to really stop before it's too late. But in a country like France,
Or even don't even start.
this should not start, of course.
Yes.
But for example, in Germany, in France, in Belgium, in the Netherlands, in many
citizens say
countries,
that it's too late.
it's late, very late, perhaps too late. And you can see in some parts of cities, life is completely different. So, for example, in some areas, you have only halal butchers. You cannot find
We have no-go zones
normal
in Sweden,
food.
in France,
Yes.
in Germany.
And that's a completely different landscape
Yeah.
developing. So I see this motivation, its ideology, they hate Western civilization, they hate European nations, and they want to erase our history, our traditions, and replace with completely different population.
So we have the pact of migration and asylum. Will it solve the problem of uncontrolled migration, or what, in your opinion, is the mature migration policy, what it should look like?
Well, my political group, the Patriots for Europe, we are against the Pact on Asylum and Migration. And I can summarize why we are against, because this will make the migration crisis even worse. Because according to the Pact on Asylum and Migration, everybody, let's say every asylum seeker should come first to Europe. Yes. So should be physically present in Europe, and then they would apply for asylum, and then there is a mechanism to
solidarity mechanism,
in fact, which is to transport migrants from some countries, usually in the south of Europe, to other countries. Poland refused that some years ago. I heard that Poland still refuses this.
We'll see.
But at least...
not many of Poles believe what Donald Tusk is saying in that topic, so we'll see.
But what is really a scandal is that every country, so for example, if Poland refuses one migrant, Poland, the state of Poland, has to pay 20,000 euro.
Yeah.
So that's more than 80,000 zloty.
Yeah.
And this is simply when you refuse one migrant.
We need to say at the beginning that migration pact doesn't stop illegal migration or uncontrolled migration.
Yeah, it doesn't stop.
That's the main point.
The main point is that it doesn't stop, and I would even say it will fuel, it will trigger even more migration, because now there is the assurance that there will be a procedure at the border to let's say start an asylum application, and this is in fact the story that migrants, NGOs and smugglers will understand, that now it's possible. So what I would, that's my opinion, but it's also the position of my political group, we should have a completely different policy. We should say, okay, sometimes...
Let's close our borders.
Yes.
External borders.
Let's close our external borders. If needed, let's build fences where fences can really help border guards. And
let's put an army on our external borders?
Yes, well, the border guards, army, if it's
because
needed.
Frontex now isn't doing its role, I guess. When I heard new Frontex director at the Libe committee saying that they are only catching about 30% of illegally crossing migrants to the EU borders, I thought, my God, what is it? How many? And of course, he said that they need more money. So I think how much money do Frontex need to work effectively?
I think before talking about money and budget, we should first question what is the role, what is the core business. If the core business of Frontex is to support national authorities in protecting the border, but really protecting, meaning that we need to enforce the law saying that illegal crossings must be prevented. So that means that if a person wants to cross and is illegally, that person must be caught and must be sent back immediately. We should even say, if a person wants to cross illegally the border, we are not obliged to process an asylum application. This should be a criteria to say we will never accept an asylum application from that person. What we need is a completely different policy. So protecting the borders, as we said, but also asylum applications should be lodged out of Europe, so before they arrive in Europe. So there should be sort of migrant centers in third safe countries. So that means countries which are not members of the European Union and where asylum seekers will be treated in a decent way.
We are trying to work on that on
we
the
are trying,
committee.
as
it's
members
hard.
of the parliament, we work
it's
together
hard,
on that.
Yes.
But I'm confident that together, well, your political group and mine and some other political groups on the right side, that perhaps we will...
Maybe even we can convince somebody in EPP.
Yes, we will try. We will try.
Hope so. Fabrice, we need to stop our interview because I have signs that our time has gone, unfortunately. Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk on that topic. It has been extremely valuable to speak with someone so knowledgeable and experienced in migration issues. Thank you. Thank you very much for accepting my invitation. Szanowni Państwo, bardzo Wam dziękuję za obecność na moim kanale. Oczywiście zachęcam do subskrybowania, do podawania dalej treści tego ważnego materiału, ważnego z punktu widzenia naszego bezpieczeństwa. Niech te treści niosą się dalej w medialnej przestrzeni i niech powodują, że ludziom po prostu będą otwierały się oczy na tak wrażliwe i ważne tematy dla naszego bezpieczeństwa. Kochani, do zobaczenia następnym razem. Pozdrawiamy Was serdecznie.